Imagine having everything: money, power, a mansion on the hill, and yet lying awake at night, haunted by one single question: does she love me for who I am, or only for what I have? This is the story of a millionaire who pretended to be paralyzed just to test his girlfriend. But what he discovered was far beyond betrayal or loyalty. It was the kind of love he never expected, the kind that came from the most unexpected place. Stay with me until the end, because this is not just a story about wealth or deception, but about the very meaning of love itself. Ethan Cross was 35, handsome, and breathtakingly wealthy. His family business empire stretched across hotels, tech companies, and real estate. To the world, he was the man who had it all. But behind his tailored suits and expensive watches, Ethan lived with a quiet fear. Ever since his parents died in a tragic accident, he had been surrounded by people who smiled at him only because of his money. Friends disappeared when he refused to fund their ventures. Business partners betrayed him. And when it came to love, the women in his life always seemed more drawn to the luxury cars he drove than to the man who drove them. His latest relationship was with Sophia, a glamorous model with a smile that could melt hearts. They had been together for 6 months, and Ethan couldn't deny she made him feel alive. But deep down, he kept asking himself, if I had nothing, would she still be here? That question became an obsession, until one night at dinner, Sophia looked across the table and said casually, "You know, Ethan, I've always wanted to marry a man who could promise me security. Life is hard, and love is easier when you don't have to worry about money." She laughed after saying it, as if it were a joke, but Ethan heard the truth underneath. His heart sank, and that was when the idea struck him. A crazy, desperate idea. He would stage an accident. He would pretend to be paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair, unable to live the luxurious life he once flaunted. If Sophia truly loved him, she would stay. If not, her mask would fall off of the very next week. Ethan told Sophia that he had been in a car accident. He faked a bandaged leg, arranged for a wheelchair, and even hired a private doctor to play along. He confined himself in his own mansion, stripped away the glamour, and told Sophia he might never walk again. At first, Sophia was caring, too caring. She cried dramatically, kissed his forehead, promised she would never leave him. But within days, cracks began to show. She grew restless. She stopped cooking for him. She complained about having to push his wheelchair. "Why don't you just hire someone?" she sighed one evening. "You're rich enough." And that's when she arrived. Maya was the maid Ethan's assistant had quietly hired. She was nothing like Sophia. She wasn't glamorous. She didn't wear designer clothes or heavy perfume. She was simple, humble, with kind eyes and a soft voice. At first, Ethan barely noticed her. He was too busy watching Sophia. But slowly, things began to change. Maya would bring him his meals with a smile. She would sit by his side and read to him when the nights grew lonely. When he struggled to reach for something, she didn't sigh or roll her eyes. She helped him gently, without complaint. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt seen, not as a millionaire, not as a burden, but as a man. And meanwhile, Sophia was drifting further away. She started going out late, dressed in glamorous gowns, telling Ethan she needed fresh air. Maya, on the other hand, would stay back and talk to Ethan for hours. She asked him about his dreams, his fears, his parents. She didn't care about his wealth. She didn't even know the full extent of it. To her, he was just Ethan, a man trapped in a chair, longing for kindness. One night, Sophia returned home late, perfume lingering on her dress. She barely glanced at Ethan, who sat waiting in the living room. She muttered, "I can't do this anymore. I didn't sign up to be a nurse." Her words cut deeper than any knife. Ethan said nothing, only nodded, watching as she stormed upstairs. But Maya, who had overheard everything from the hallway, walked quietly into the room, knelt beside him, and whispered, "You're not alone. Some people don't understand, but I do. You're stronger than this." Tears burned Ethan's eyes. For the first time, he realized, this woman, this humble maid, cared for him in a way Sophia never could. The breaking point came a week later. Sophia announced she was leaving. She tossed her diamond necklace on the table, sneering, "What good is love without the life I wanted?" With that, she walked out of the mansion forever. Ethan sat there in silence, his chest heavy. But Maya came to him, her hands trembling, and said, "Ethan, she never deserved you. The right person would stay, even if you had nothing." In that moment, Ethan couldn't hold it in anymore. He told Maya the truth, that he was not paralyzed, that it was all an act to test Sophia's love. Maya's eyes widened in shock. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, softly, she said, "So all this time, you could walk?" "Yes," Ethan admitted, standing up before her. "But I never expected to find you. You cared for me without knowing who I really am. Maya, you showed me what love means." Maya's lips trembled, and tears slid down her cheeks. "I don't care about your money. I care about you. The man who listened to me, who laughed with me, who showed me his pain." They stood there, in the quiet of the mansion, and Ethan knew his life had changed forever. Months later, the news spread across the city: Ethan Cross, the millionaire, had married his maid. People whispered, some mocked, some envied, but none of it mattered. In Maya's arms, Ethan found the one thing his fortune could never buy: true love. Ending message to the viewers: so remember this, and money can buy luxury, but it can never buy loyalty. Wealth can attract attention, but it can never create love. Sometimes, the ones who love us the most are the ones the world overlooks. Ethan thought he was setting a trap for his girlfriend, but in the process, he uncovered something priceless. True love doesn't need riches, it only needs a heart willing to stay.